Welcome to Licensing Subcommittee. Today we are here to hear the application of the premises licence for Castle Park Food Festival, Castle Park. I'm going to hand over to the elected chair, who is Councillor Eleanor Comley, to take proceedings from this point. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Claudette. I'm Councillor Eleanor Comley. I'm Councillor for Bishopston and Ashley Down, a member of the Licensing Committee and elected chair of this subcommittee. Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us in this virtual meeting. And thank you to all officers who've been working so hard to make these virtual meetings possible. There are some slight changes to the procedure from a meeting that we would have in person, in that I will ask people to batch up their questions and ask them when it's their turn to make a presentation, rather than asking them freely at any point through the proceedings. So first I'd like to ask my fellow members of the committee to introduce themselves. Councillor Massey, are you able to unmute yourself, because I'm not?
Good afternoon. Is that working?
Yes, it did. Wonderful.
Great.
Councillor Abraham?
Can't hear you. Can you try again, please, Councillor Abraham?
There seems to be a real problem with it. It says it wants you to. Fair enough. Peter Abraham, Councillor Stoke Bishop. Did that come over?
Yes, that's great. Thank you, Councillor Abraham.
I get to a blank screen where I got nothing on to mute or not.
That's just because Taylor hasn't got her video on. So when she speaks, you don't see the video. Don't worry about it. So this is an informal and non-adversarial hearing, and all comments and questions should be invited by the chair. First, I'm going to ask the licensing officer, who is Abby Holman, to introduce the report. And members and legal advisors to the committee will ask any questions for clarification. Then the applicant, with Tom Payne, will be invited to present the application. And again, there'll be an opportunity for questions for clarification. The regulatory authority will make their presentation. And then again, there will be opportunities to ask questions, including for the applicant to ask questions. Then any relevant persons who attend. Now, we have had statements from relevant persons, but it's my understanding that none of them is planning to attend this afternoon. But if anyone does arrive late, we'll invite relevant persons to make their presentations and to ask any questions if they wish. Once the application is clear, there'll be an opportunity to sum up for the relevant persons, for the responsible authorities, and for the applicant. And that will conclude this part of the hearing. At the conclusion of this hearing, we'll end this meeting and adjourn for the decision making. And there is a second meeting which you should have been invited to, which is the decision meeting. And when the clerk emails you to tell you that the decision has been made, please rejoin that meeting using the link in that second email. The chat function is just to be used if you have a technical issue. For example, if you can't hear, if you're unable to unmute yourself. It shouldn't be used for anything that is information that's relevant to the hearing, because this is a public meeting. It's being live streamed to YouTube, and so anything that we say that is part of the hearing needs to be visible on that stream. Also, bearing in mind that this is being streamed to YouTube, please be mindful that your image and participation in this meeting will be online for a number of weeks. So I'd like to start by inviting Abby to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. This is an application for the grant of a premises licence, as you've stated, for Castle Park Food Festival, Castle Park on Broadweir in the city centre. The application is for a range of days and times and a range of activities for a a date-specific licence, but a licence that would run in perpetuity and have a condition specifying that date on it. The earliest time is 11 o'clock in the morning and the latest time is 0100, and that's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And it is for the early bank holiday weekend in May each year. As a result of the consultation, which we're satisfied was undertaken correctly, the application received a number of objections, and I'll just run through those in a second. It does fall within your city centre cumulative impact area, and we can talk about that a little bit later if you wish. At least one of the reps does talk about the cumulative impact area, but doesn't feel that it's triggered in this instance, but that will be a matter for you in your deliberations. With regard to the representations, you did receive one from the police, one from Sarah Flower on behalf of the regulatory services teams, so health and safety, pollution control, etc., and one from a relevant person. There was an additional relevant person who made a representation, but they have subsequently withdrawn it. So the only relevant person representation that you will have is from Mr. Dixon, and that should be the only one that you take into consideration. We understand that we haven't been able to contact him to gain his attendance today. With regard to the police and regulatory services representations, I understand that they have been agreed by the applicant. There are a number of conditions requested. With regard specifically to the police representation, there is a condition on there that suggests the licence should only be for 3 years. I'm not sure that that is a condition that can be applied legally, and I would recommend that you seek clarification from your legal advisor on that matter. With regard to the remainder of the conditions, I'm satisfied that they are relevant and proportionate to the application. Louise Mowbray is not in attendance today, but as I say, if you seek clarification from Mr. Payne, I'm sure he'll say that the representation is agreed. And Ms. Flower, on behalf of the Regulatory Services team, along with Mr. Curtis from Pollution Control, are available should you have questions for them, but don't intend to speak unless you do have particular inquiries of them, as their representation has been agreed as well. That is everything on my report, unless you have any questions or clarifications for me.
Thank you. I don't have any questions of clarification, although I would like to take the legal advice about that 3-year limit condition. Councillor Abraham, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Councillor Massey?
Councillor Massey, your mic isn't working at the moment. Can you try again?
Sorry, somebody muted me. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Right. It was only about the number of days this is supposed to be over. Whether it's Monday, Saturday, Sunday, Thursday, Friday. Is it definitely 5 days?
Chair, I'm just double checking the application for that information. I'm sure Mr. Payne will be able to answer that on his application. The application does seek some activities on the Thursday and Friday, and the remainder of the activities, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and the remainder of the activities on Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So yes, it does appear to include the bank holiday Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lynn, could I bring you in now? Firstly, to ask, do you have any questions or clarifications you would like to ask?
No, I don't have any questions, Chair, about the time-limited condition. I'm just looking that up now. I don't answer to that just off the top of my head, so I'm just looking in Patterson's.
Okay. I think
so if you want,
if it's all right with you, I'll let
I
you
can
look into that and come back to you after we've taken the presentation from the applicant.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Payne, Can I invite you as the applicant now to present your application?
Yeah, hello everyone. Hope you're keeping well. Can everyone hear me before I start?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Yeah, thank you for doing this. I appreciate it's a lot of time and effort's gone into this for us, and obviously, unfortunately, we've already postponed the proposed event for this year. Actually would have started this weekend, but you know, the situation as it is, we've already kind of publicly informed everyone and all ticket holders that actually we're now looking at the same weekend, but starting in 2021. The essence of the event is very much a food festival, as described in the kind of heading. We proposed a number of different areas, including a kind of a Bristol restaurant area, so the best Bristol restaurants doing small plates in the festival setting, a street food area, a banqueting tent with separate tickets sold in advance for kind of high-end and Michelin star chefs working with local Bristol chefs to kind of collaborate on an offering. There would be an area for a producers market and local producers and local farmers markets. We also were proposing to hold areas for talks and panel discussions and demonstrations, and also kind of an activity area and kids area for kind of family. So a range of activities for young and old and all family members. And then I guess with regards to licensing specifically, there would also be licensed bars across the site. As previously mentioned, we had open dialogue in advance of the license application and during the application period with a number of the relevant authorities. Lots of the kind of feedback had been taken into our plans and worked into our plans. I'm happy to confirm that all of the representations made by the responsible authorities we found acceptable and are happy to incorporate into our plans and into the licensing conditions. The only one I would check, and I know you're checking this from a legal point of view, is the 3-year limit requested by Louise Mowbray. Totally from a personal point of view, I don't believe that's necessary. I believe there's other mechanisms in place that should the event be found to not be operating responsibly or, there's issues caused by the event, then there's other mechanisms in place that could act as a control in this situation, not least the fact that Bristol City Council, as the site owner, could withdraw site permission at any point, and that would prevent the event from taking place anyway if they withdraw their permission. And obviously, at any point, a kind of review could be requested by responsible authorities as well. So I'm not 100% sure that 3-year thing needs to be in place, but obviously I'll leave that for the committee to decide upon. But yeah, everything else we're happy with from responsible authorities. And then with regards to the local resident representation, I did write via the licensing department a response to the representation, just to understand, because I think, and quite rightly, I understand the concerns. I think when as you will all be aware, the difficulty sometimes with advertising a premises license application is there's just times and dates on it really, and not a lot of other information. And I think the representation was made because the resident was concerned that the event was planned to go till 1 a.m. over the weekend. That's not the case. And as specified in the event management plan and agreed with noise pollution, there's two small areas actually on the map. One would be the banqueting tent, and the other would be what we've called the Pasta Loco, or the Little Loco area. And the idea of these two small areas is that they would have a license to keep serving until 1 in the morning, and remain open till 1 in the morning as a kind of late night restaurant-y, late night bar area. This would be, the entry would be controlled. We were looking at either, a ticketing system, or staff and crew and chefs, etc., people that are involved in the festival scene, being able to use these two small areas. So the general food festival area would start to wind down from 9 p.m. And the rest of the area would be shut by 11 p.m. And the agreement that we reached with noise pollution, for example, would be that obviously there would be no noise, no music, or that would be audible at the nearest residential properties from these areas after 11 p.m. So I think quite rightly the local residents were concerned about this, but with that, not being able to put that details in the advertising of the application, they weren't aware that actually it's not the whole festival site. It's two very small areas, as detailed in our event management plan, and as already kind of entered into a dialogue with the relevant responsible authorities regarding this as well. That's it from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I would like to ask a couple of questions before I move on to anyone else. Did I hear right that there'll be restaurants and there will be bars across the site? So there will be places where alcohol is served with food, and then we also bars where alcohol is served on its own?
Yes, that's correct, yes.
And about the banqueting and Pasta Loco areas, did you say that was for the staff associated with the event?
So they would be, the idea is they would be public during daytime. So the banqueting tent would be tickets available to the public, and the Little Loco, Pasta Loco area would be available to the public all day. And then the idea is that we would do, the main festival would close at 11, but these areas that are open potentially after 11 till 1 would be either ticketed only, so in advance, or just available to members of the crew and the people that have been involved in the festival, yes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Massey, do you have any questions?
Hello?
Yes, it works now.
Good, thank you. No, I don't have any questions at the moment, thank you.
Councillor Abraham?
Hello.
Coming with advice.
I'm getting a number of voices.
I'll mute myself.
Hello.
Councillor Abraham?
I have some questions, but there's a number of voices coming in.
I think we fixed that now.
It's all right, yes. Number of questions, if I may. Could I start? There's a sort of question: will it be fenced? Could I have an answer to that, please?
Yeah, the site will be totally fenced and secured, with then entrance areas for tickets to be checked and bags to be checked by SIA accredited staff.
So, how will people get to the memorials there that they wish to go to? There's the Sikh memorial, which will want some entrance, and the Normandy veteran one.
I can't quite answer that question. I believe that would be a site permissions question. They've not advised us on how they want us to do that.
How will the Castle Park is designated as the Bristol's Peace Park? There is the Sikh memorial was opened by a member of the royal family just over a year ago, and the Normandy veterans have just replaced and had it vandalised again, unfortunately, a number of memorials there with quite a moving ceremony. So there's a lot going on there, and I can't understand. So it's going to be out of bounds for them for a week. Is that right?
I would be happy to defer to site permissions and operate under their advice as to how they'd like us to work with those memorials.
But that is not sure. That's not the question. It's a public park that they have paid lots of money in order to put their memorials there, and nobody has realised that they're going to be barred from there, and the whole area is going to be fenced for about a week, I presume.
Chair?
I think it's for the bank holiday weekend, the early May bank holiday weekend, so Thursday to Monday.
Chair?
Yeah, but you've got to put the fencing up and you've got to take it down.
True.
No, it's about a week.
Sorry,
if you look
hold on a second, Councillor Abraham. Who was that?
Sorry, it was me. It was Abby. Hi.
Oh, thank you, Abby.
Sorry, Chair. I just wonder. I can appreciate what Councillor Abraham's saying, but I'm not sure that the applicant would be able to answer the question. I do think it might be a relevant question for site permissions to establish, and I think we can take that back to them certainly. I'm not sure that the applicant has the knowledge of whether site permissions have taken that into account or not.
But if we gave a licence for this footprint and there was a decision to exclude one of the memorials to provide access to it, that would be a minor variation that wouldn't require a subsequent application. Is that right?
I would suggest it would be likely to be a minor variation to the plans, yes.
Fine. So I think it's a good point, well made, Councillor Abraham.
Can I continue?
It's not relevant to the licence issue.
Well, I'm sorry, I totally disagree. I believe it's very relevant. This is a public open park, which almost totally is going to be excluded from the public, and that the applicant is saying, not for me to do, but they have made the application to close that park effectively. And I don't know of anywhere else where we would close the whole of a facility. This is Bristol's Peace Park, designated. It has trees there that we put for peace. They are twinning. There's a lot going on down there. I go there quite regularly, and I don't know if just to turn up and find it all fenced would be disturbing and upsetting. And I wanted to give the applicant an opportunity to say that the location has been considered, bearing in mind that it is Bristol's Peace Park.
Do you want me to come back on that?
Please do, because I need some reassurances.
Yeah, well, I'm like I say, the process of obviously applying for the licence, it comes after an agreement with Bristol City Council's the site permissions team, who manage all of the parks. So I would always defer to their greater judgment and expertise in as to how they want the parks to be managed, and how they seek to generate revenue, much needed revenue from these events.
But if we said it shouldn't be fenced,
if I could continue, I'm totally respect the importance of these memorials, and I totally understand the importance of the location of the park, and also the meaning, the extra meanings to the park. So I'm more than happy and wholeheartedly work alongside Bristol City Council and the site permissions to maintain any access that they deem necessary and important for other park users. So that, and I think we've done a lot of events in this city, and we've always gone on and over and above what we possibly can do to keep local residents and keep local park users happy with all of our events. So same goes here. If there's things we need to do to keep people happy, then we will do them.
Can I approach it then a different way? Because to leave it just afterwards, how essential is fencing all around the park?
I suspect that's a question you need to direct to the police.
How can you operate without a fencing? I'm asking the organiser.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Peter, it is essential for this event. First and foremost, it's obviously a commercial event, and it needs to generate the revenue from ticket sales in advance to take place. And secondly, from probably answering on behalf of the police, from a safety point of view, there would obviously be a capacity that's been agreed and has applied for in part of this license for the maximum amount of people on to that park at any one time, and we are responsible for that capacity, which would be impossible to control without fencing.
My other question related to the operation itself regarding the trade that's done there. What sort of effect is that going to have on traders in Broadmead, do you feel? Restaurants, food, bars?
Well, we hope very much that it will have a beneficial trade to that whole area over that weekend, because what we're hoping is obviously bringing thousands of people into the centre on that weekend, families and people from all over the southwest and hopefully the rest of the UK. The real aspiration of this event is to really showcase Bristol as a food destination city. We believe that Bristol has some of the best new up-and-coming chefs and up-and-coming restaurants in the country, and the whole idea that how this event really came about is that they should really be showcased. So we're hoping there'll be a huge beneficial effect on local restaurateurs, local food offerings, and local shops, and then obviously goes without saying hotels, taxis, and the rest of the kind of city centre economy. That's always been the kind of starting point for this. It's how the whole idea for this event came around, really.
I don't think I have any further questions at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Abraham. Abby, do you have any questions?
No, thank you, Chair.
And Lynn, as the committee's legal advisor, do you have any questions?
No questions, Chair, but just coming back on the issue of the time-limited licence.
Lynn, sorry. Can I just ask you to take off your video? I think your video interrupts the sound quality.
Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes,
sorry about that. I'll keep it off in future. On the issue of the time-limited licence, Section 26 of the Licensing Act does enable a licence to be granted for a limited period. So it would be possible to impose a time-limited condition, but the question is really, is it appropriate and proportionate for promotion of the licensing objectives? I'm not quite sure I fully understand the police reasoning behind suggesting such a condition. Obviously, we don't have Louise here, so she's not going to be able to help us on that, in that regard, but that's something you need to take into account. But it certainly wouldn't be unlawful for you to do that.
Thank you. So we don't have any of the relevant persons who made representations here. So I'd like to now move on to the summing up. We don't have a representative of the responsible authority, so I would just like to give the last word to the applicant. You have anything you'd like to say in summing up, Mr. Payne?
Yeah, great. Thank you again for your time. No, I think I've covered everything that I needed to cover with regards to the representations we've received. I would probably just reiterate our personal belief that we don't need the time restriction. However, if the committee did feel that a time restriction did need to be put in place, we would politely ask that it starts from next year, since we've already lost this year's event. So that would be considered. We've been most grateful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that concludes this portion of the hearing. We will now adjourn to deliberate in private. and we will rejoin the second meeting, which is the decision meeting, to give you our decision. You should have already received an email with an invitation to that meeting. When you receive an email from the clerk to tell you that we have finished our deliberation and made our decision, please join us in that meeting then. Don't join us early because there are technical problems if you try to do that. So that's the end of the meeting. Thank you, Claudette.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. to the decision announcement for the application for Castle Park Food Festival. Can I hand over to the Chair, Eleanor Colney, to give that decision? Thank you.
Thank you, Claudette. We've decided by majority to grant the licence, subject to all conditions as are consistent with the operating schedule and those agreed with the responsible authorities, with the exception of the 3-year limit, which we felt was not proportionate. There are 2 additional conditions that we've added, which we considered to be appropriate and proportionate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. The event shall be limited to the Thursday to Sunday of the first May bank holiday weekend each year. This is not clearly specified in the operating schedule, nor in the draft licence, and for the purposes of the licence, this needs to be explicitly stated as a condition. Secondly, the licence holder shall take all reasonable steps to ensure that any built memorials and historic buildings within the footprint of the site are protected from damage from attendees, crew or staff, and structure for the event. That concludes our finding and this meeting. Thank you all very much.
Oh, just one, Chair. I think it was my mistake on the condition. Should reverse Monday, as he picked up on that earlier.
I do apologise. That had been picked up and I failed to correct it.
That was my
first of those
typo on my part.
State that again. The first of those conditions, I'll state that again. The event shall be limited to the Thursday to Monday of the first May bank holiday weekend each year. Apologies, that had been picked up but I missed it. So that concludes the decision and this meeting. Thank you all very much.